Hello and welcome to the next in the series of our little videos that we are putting together to try and create a little game of Pong in Unity. So far you should have gone through and hopefully set yourself up on Unity and got that downloaded. We looked at the play area and getting that all ready to go, and then we did our first bit of scripting on our paddles to get them working independently, so that we've got essentially kind of two paddles that we can move up and down the screen within our play area. What we're going to look at today is how we can now take that on a step and look at our next bit of scripting, where we're going to look at the ball and the effects that the ball will need to have attached to it. Alright, so let's crack on. So hopefully you should have a screen that's looking similar to this, and you've got an idea of where everything's going, and you've got used to some of the areas that we need to consider when we're using Unity. The next thing that we need to do is look at adding our ball. So if we select on our ball, we've got it there. So I need to remember. So just make sure that we've got our ball selected, and it's a sprite, 2D and UI. And I can't remember what the size is. So we'll just take it in and we'll have a little look at how it appears. Okay, it's tiny. So what we need to do is I'm just going to delete that out of the screen. And if we select on it, and I think if we set this to, I know we've set the others to 1, but if we set that to 10 and apply that and then take that in, there we go. That gives us a bit of a better scale. We can see it in actuality. So it's probably still a little bit small. So I'm just going to select on it, just scale it up in the play area. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so I've got that on a scale of. So I brought it in. Let's just backtrack. So sprite 2D, pixels per unit, I set it to 10 this time around, and then when it was in the screen I just scaled it up to what, 1.5 should we say, and we can make that a little bit neater, couldn't we, so that it's all as it should be. Alright, so just kind of up a little bit, so we go through and we've got a thing, and we can just have it kind of sitting there to begin with, that's fine. So with our ball selected, we need to add a collider to it, a box collider to it, so that it can actually collide. And remember to select the 2D one so that we've got it in there, and then we're good to go with that. I don't think we need to change any options on there just yet as we go through. Right, so one thing we need to do, because if we just put it at the moment on there at the moment, then our ball won't have the right type of physics to it. So we need to add a physics material to it, so it bounces off things a little bit better. Okay, so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to create that material first. So we're going to right click in our project area and go to create. And we are going to go down to, I've lost it, physics materials. Physics materials 2D. Okay. And we're going to call it bounce. So we know exactly what it's meant to be doing. And if we select on that and then just make sure we've got these options over here, friction and bounciness. So what we want to do is we want to change our friction to 0. And we probably want our bounciness just to be set to 1. And then select on your ball, and you've got this section here where you can see even on mine it says none and physics material. So we want to drag and drop our physics material into there so it sits on there as our material, and then we're all ready and good to go. Okay, so now if we hit play, then our ball would kind of be able to bounce off things, but it's not going to move anywhere at the moment. So we need to make sure that we change that. So we know that when we need to affect things that are moving, that we need to affect our rigid bodies. So we need to add a rigid body to our ball. So let's go select on our ball and go to our components and add a rigid body in, and then we'll go through the different elements. So this time we don't want it to use any gravity, so we need to make sure that we set that to 0. So there's our gravity scale there, and we'll just set that to 0. And we need to make sure we want to have a small little bit of mass so it doesn't push the rackets out the way as it's going through. So 1 would be too much. So let's break that down to 0.00001. Alright, that's probably too many zeros, but you've got it on screen just in case I did it wrong. And we don't want it to rotate around because it would just cause our issues. So we'll just freeze our rotation there. And I think that is everything we want to do on our rigid body at the moment. Okay, so now we need to access that and get it moving and get it running around so that we can have a little look at how we can play around with the ball's motion. So let's right click in our project window and assets and go to create and C#, and this time we're going to name it ball. Keep it nice and simple, and then we'll double click on that and open up Visual Studio. Why is my... There we go. Sorry, it was taking a little bit of a while. Right, so we need to put in a few things that we've already started looking at. So we should hopefully be familiar with some of these. So first of all, we want a public float in there just to regulate our speed. So if we go public float and speed, and we'll equal it to 30 like we did before, and semicolon. And there's our public float. And then in start, we want to grab that rigid body component so we know that that's what we're affecting as we go through. Get component, sorry, just moving my keyboard so I can get a few things better. Rigid body 2D, make sure you get the 2D one. And then we want brackets. We want our velocity to equal our vector 2 right times speed, and our speed we've got up the top there now. Okay, so we can save that where it is there, and hopefully if we go back to Unity just briefly and select on our ball, let Unity catch up with us. Let's just close our box collider for a minute so we can see bits a little bit easier. We'll do the same to our rigid body, and we'll add our ball in. Okay, so we can see our public float there. I think now if we hit play, we should see our ball just kind of fly across the screen. There we go. And it's nicely hitting our paddles because it's got some friction to it. Now, I think if we see it's hitting our walls as well. Okay, so we've got something, but the problem we've got is that it's literally just hitting our paddles. It's not got any movement or any motion to it at the moment, so it's not bouncing effectively. All right, so it's not going to be much of an interesting game as we go through. One thing to say, that if we sped things up too much with this, then sometimes we've got an issue where the collision detection, where it's set to discrete, if we have our ball speeding around too quickly, and it's not too bad at 30, but if we do speed it up to make it more difficult later on, then it might miss the collision and it might slip through what it's hitting against, and then we'd lose our ball literally. So what we need to do is maybe just change from collision detection from discrete to continuous. Now this is fine on this setup because normally you probably steer away from this because it would kind of take a big performance hit. But in a game like this with Pong, where we've just got a very simple selection of things going on, then it's absolutely fine. So we'll just change that and it would play around a little bit better. All right. So like we said before, we've got a very flat ball, if you like, so it's not bouncing off at different angles. So what we've got to imagine is that we've got the top of our racket, we've got the middle of our racket, and we've got the bottom. And we need to almost set different values and different coordinates so that it will pick up where it's hitting. All right, so we're going to divide the coordinates by the racket's height. So we've got that top, middle, and bottom section. Okay, so we've got a function that we're going to drop in. And we're going to drop it in. Let's go back to our script. We should still have it open. Okay, so we are going to go into here. Right, sorry, just a bit of a jump cut there because I'd forgotten what I was doing. So we're actually going to put it in its own thing, sorry. So underneath where we just started, let's have a little think. So we're going to go float, and we're going to call it hit factor so that we can break down where it's hitting. And we're going to go vector 2 and ball position across to vector 2 and racket position. And float our racket height. So here we're breaking down essentially our racket and where it hits and what we want to come back. So we want to return a ball position of y minus racket position y, close that bracket, and we want to divide that by the racket height. Yeah, alright, so that will give us different positions on our racket. So now it will bounce off at different angles as we go through. Alright, so that gives us a little bit more playability on our game. So what we need to do now is we need to work out, okay, what's happening and what's it hitting, so that we know the ball knows that it's hitting the right thing. So we're going to put in another function, and this time we're going to put in void on collision enter 2D. Make sure we get the 2D in there, and we need to open our brackets. And we're just going to break the collision down to goal. Alright, and it's put in a private for me. I'm going to just take mine out so that it's nice and neat. We don't need that in there. Alright, so Cole's going to hold all of our information for our collisions. So when we're referencing that, you know what's going on. So I'm going to put in some notes in here so that you can see what's happening. So this is if it hit the left paddle, which is my blue paddle. So we're going to do an if statement this time. So if we collide with game object that's got the name that equals, careful there's 2 equals there, just so that you C# knows what you're talking about. Paddle, careful, make sure you get your spellings right, unlike I just did. Open brackets and then parentheses. Okay, and then this is going to calculate our hit factor. Calculate hit factor. So we know what's going on. So it's going to be float y equals hit factor transform dot position transform dot position dot collider dot bounds dot size dot y. Right, let's just check that. Sorry, I was reading and typing at the same time. Not the most exciting. Okay, spelled size wrong. Let's go in there and just check that. All right. So our float y is going to equal to hit factor transform position collider transform position collide bound size dot y. All right, and then we're going to calculate the direction. So let's drop that in. Calculate direction. And then this is going to be a vector 2 direction equals new vector 2 1 to suggest x and y from before, and it's going to be normalized. Right, why have I got vector 2 direction equals new vector. I think I might have a mistake somewhere. Where have I got a mistake? Oh. And we need one more to finish that off, which is just sorting out our speed. So we've got what we're hitting, what direction it's going into, and then we need to calculate our speed, and this time we're going to reference our rigid body again. Rigid body 2D, and we've typed this before, so oh, I've got a mistake now. Equals times speed. Brackets. Right, let's neaten that up because we've got an issue there. Let my finger come off shift too early. Get component. Right. I've got an issue somewhere which I need to go back and find. So let's have a little look. If goal name equals pale blue, that's all alright. Float y equals hit factor transform dot position coal dot transform dot position coal dot collider bound size y. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, I've missed something somewhere, so I need to try and work out what I've missed. It might just be my Visual Studio playing up. It sometimes does this. It gives me squiggly lines when I don't need it. Right, so we'll just work out what we're going to do with it. So what I'm going to do is because we've done that for our paddle blue, and we need to do it for our red paddle as well. So just to make life very, very easy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. And then underneath that one, I'm just going to paste in a new one. Now we need to go through, we need to make sure we change everything that we need to change. So first of all, first line, if goal equals paddle red. So we need to make sure that we're hitting the red paddle, and we'll change our note as well. So that's the right paddle. Right paddle. And then this will be the same if I just track through. Yep. So this one is going to have a -1, so because we want it coming the other way, because we're on the right hand side, and then everything else should be as is. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm missing a bracket. If I do that, then I'll definitely lose one. I feel like I'm missing something obvious. Okay, we'll save that and we'll see what's happening as we go through. Right, let's jump back to Unity and see what errors we've got. Console. Oh, am I just missing something really? Oh, look, I am. Look, one of those in there. That means there'll need to be one of these in here. And then if I save that, that should be everything going on. Okay, it's not quite fixed. Vector 2. What have I missed out? I've missed out something somewhere. Okay, let's pause and I'll come back and I'll sort out what my error is, and then I'll tell you what it is so you don't have to watch me fix it. Okay. Right, sorry about that. Right, I worked it out and I've left the error in so that you can see it, so that we can just go through and make sure it's right. So I think it might have been a hangover from something that I was working on before, but my script has got this Unity system numerics in, and it might be just where I'm working off an old piece of code and this has superseded it. But if we just take that out and then save our script, you'll see that my squiggly lines have gone. And now when I go back to Unity, our errors should disappear as well. He says, hopefully. There we go. All right. So if you've got that error, just keep an eye on the top there to make sure that system numerics isn't in place. It's just the bit of script that I'm working on at the moment. All right. So now we should, all fingers crossed, 30. We set that to continuous, didn't we? Yes, we did. All right. So let's just hit play. And now we should see that we're starting to get some angle on our ball. So our ball's quite slow. So let's try and, there we go. So if we hit it on the bottom there, you can see it's hitting on the bottom. So it's quite clunky still, but we are getting some playability out of it. And we can start changing the directions now. So if I can try and get the bottom there, so we can see if we go things. And if I just let it hit off, and it'll bounce off and it'll bounce through. So now we've got pretty much all we need in terms of making our game. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we've got something that can hold players' scores, and that we need to have a little bit of code that might detect when the walls are hit, so that we can add to those scores, and there's a bit of logic behind it, so it kind of updates as we go through. All right, that's it for today. So now we've got the basics of our game, and we just need to finish it off with a little bit of UI to make sure that we can see what the scores are, and then you've got a nice simple two-player Pong. All right, and that will be coming up in the next video. All right, look forward to seeing what you can come up with, and that's it for today.